Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about a recent piece of nerdy entertainment, looking at it in depth. So we talk about what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, what worked, what didn't work. We talk about themes, we talk about tones, we talk about overall messages, if there is such a thing, and that means we spoil it. That's kind of in the name, and the alerts, and all of that sort of stuff. So, tonight we will be spoiling season 2, and realistically, probably some of season 1, of the animated comedy series Star Trek Lower Decks. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter, and a couple of other places doing a bunch of other things. Joining me tonight is my partner in crime. We are... how'd that go in the way of the gun? You must be the brains of the operation. Yeah, this is an operation that doesn't have so much brains, or something like that. Anyway, my partner in crime, Manny, introduce yourself if you would.
Hey, this is Manny, the founder of Nerd Caliber. I'm deep in my heart. I wish we could talk about Star Trek Prodigy, but I'm prepared to talk about Star Trek Lower Decks.
We can move some stuff. When does Prodigy end? Anyway,
Hmm.
we'll talk about that later, folks. But yeah, so if you have not seen this series, particularly season 2 of this series, and you do not like spoilers, you should not be watching this show. You should wait until you've seen it and then come back and watch the show on YouTube after it's already not live anymore. Or you could also be watching it after the fact, within a few weeks, on Twitch. And that was Fade to Black, not Fade. Come on, Rodney. Get your OBS skills back on team here. So on your screen right now is our URL, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. We'd love to have you go there. We would love to have you follow us. We'd even love to have you join in on that channel to help us kick our participation levels up a little bit so that Twitch likes us even more than they do, which I guess is a little bit. So if you get a chance, please join us on Twitch. Already in the comments, Rathacraft, un classico. Star Trek is a classic for sure,
This review is a classic.
and this review will, of course, be a classic. Spoiler chat, not really some. Well, I guess it is a review. Spoilery review. Harry Brady,
Yeah.
welcome back to the show. Marshall Lewis, hello. It is interesting. Thank you. I hope you find it interesting. Again, assuming you've seen Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, or you don't care about spoilers. We do have people in our chats who really just don't care. I don't understand that mindset, but I accept it. So what is Star Trek Lower Decks? It is an animated comedy series currently running on Paramount Plus. It started when that was called CBS All Access. That is from the mind of Mike McMahon, who was one of the primary writers on Rick and Morty. He created the show. He is the head writer and showrunner, so he is credited as a writer in every single episode. This is pretty much his baby. It is the story. It is set in the standard, not the Kelvin universe, not the J.J. Abrams universe, the standard canonical universe. As in 2380, so slightly after the return of Voyager, the end of the Dominion War, so on.
Yeah, a year after Star Trek Nemesis, I think, also.
Okay. All right, cool. I don't know enough of my exact dates, so. But thank
Well, we all try to forget about Star Trek Nemesis.
I do not try to forget about that. It introduced us to Tom Hardy.
That's true. That's probably the best thing about it. If we were doing a review right now, we'd just talk about Tom Hardy.
And Ron Perlman as a bat creature. Come on.
Oh, yeah, that's
Come
right.
on.
Wow.
Come on, man. How can you... Anyway. This isn't
Before.
about any other Star Trek series or movie or anything else. This is about Lower Decks. So Lower Decks is the story of a bunch of young, brand new, assigned to a ship Starfleet, just out of the Academy ensigns. And hence, so the idea of lower decks, these are the people who are not on the bridge. This isn't the bridge command crew or anything. These are the people who are, occasionally show up on the bridge because they made a mistake or whatever. The main characters of this four, and kind of realistically the main character of the series, even though they do a pretty good job of mixing it up among the four. The main characters are Ensign Beckett Mariner, who is the daughter of the captain of the ship, Captain Freeman. Her best friend, Ensign Brad Boimler. Boimler is kind of uptight and a super nerd about Starfleet history. You could kind of call him young Coulson for the Star Trek universe. Ensign Devana Tendi, a young Orion woman, so the green skin, who is a junior member of the Medical Corps and is the generally super positive member of the group. We find out in season 2 actually some very interesting backstory. And Ensign Sam or Samanthan Rutherford, who is a human, a black man, and a cyborg, and that he has a cyborg implant in his head and his vision, more like, and I can't remember her name, the navigator on Discovery.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Than, say, Geordi LaForge. Although the comparison, he is an engineer with a cybernetic vision enhancement and other things. So he's kind of like Geordi in that sense. And generally easygoing, but he also has some problems with his implant that is part of plot elements that come up at various points. It's an episodic series with a little bit of override from episode to episode, but not much. And it's certainly not like, the thing that started that whole concept, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It is way more like episodic cartoons. And those are the primary characters. It deals with their... they get into trouble a lot, basically. And the secondary characters are Captain Freeman, First in Command, Commander Jack Ransom, Security, Lieutenant Shax, follow-up security after something happens with Shax, Lieutenant or Commander Kayshawn, and then the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Tana. And to give you an idea of how much this series digs into Star Trek, really edge of canon stuff, that character is a Caitian, the humanoid feline race that was only in the Star Trek original cartoon.
Yeah.
And it was a Caitian that took Uhura's place as the communications officer in that version of the Enterprise, which had the original crew doing the voice cast. So that was kind of really surprising that they brought that back. And that's basically it. You get to see how the concept of the humor of this is, let's look at some of the implications of some of the stuff that is kind of taken for granted in the Star Trek universe. For the most part. There are other things that could literally be in any other kind of nerdy, cartoon comedy. Rick and Morty, for example. A lot of stuff that would be right at home in the Orville. It's a mix. But what they really aim for a lot is humor related to Star Trek. And that's pretty much it. It's the second season. Second season just wrapped. It was originally a 2-season order from Paramount or CBS, and it is now, they approved a 3rd season back in April, and they're in production already. So there will be a 3rd season. All right, so what we start, we do a round robin here about what we liked about it, then we go to dislikes, and we talk about bigger topic issues, theme, and so on. So Manny, what do you like about Star Trek Lower Decks in general, season 2 in particular?
besides the typical stuff like good animation, sound, voice acting, I love that Jerry O'Donnell. I believe I'm saying his last name right. It's Ransom. He's so good in that role that I forget that he's Jerry O'Donnell from
Yeah.
Sliders and all these other great
It's
shows.
O'Connell, but
O'Connell,
yep.
yes. Um, Besides that, I would say that the background characters and sometimes even the backstory, backstory as in like the subplot to a lot of these episodes are great. Actually, they're as a game master, I sometimes see what they're putting together. I'm like, oh, I'd love to do that story because it's good science fiction. Um, and when I love Tendi, I love Rutherford. I enjoy those
I got
characters a lot.
Tendi. If you can have a waifu in non-Japanese animation, Tendi is waifu.
Mm. And yeah, I love their interaction. I love how nerdy they are. Those two characters really make the series for me, honestly. Um, and honestly, that's really much it. I will say that in both season one, season two, usually the last two episodes of both of them tend to be the best
Yep.
of the 10 episodes. I feel like I don't want to get into the dislikes yet, but I feel like it's almost like the first 8 episodes are kind of like filler. And then they get really into like not only just good action, but I don't know, it's just good interaction. I don't know. It's almost like it's like they finally like hitting uh, this how should I say it? They're going 88 miles per hour now. You know, they're just I don't know, just good. It just works. You know, there's a believable threat, some good problem solving they need to solve, and everyone's like at their best,
Yeah.
trying to get things working. Um,
I
but
think
that's
I agree with that. I think in this season it's a little less like that. I think they have some high points. Um, the episode with Keishon, where the Tamari, a Tamarian joins, it is really good. You know, the setup of the trouble that they get into is a little weird, but
yeah,
it's still exciting and challenging, and it brings forward a very important point about the dynamics among those four.
yeah,
Um, and of course, I think it deals fantastically with the idea, the humorous possibilities of somebody whose race speaks entirely in metaphor
yes,
actually joining the Federation.
yeah. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah,
Tendi, I loved her backstory. I love that she's trying to break away from the stereotypical view of Orions. I love that storyline, and
yep,
how, I wish they would delve more into her past a little bit. Um, Rutherford, I love this idea where like he's trying to he's worried he's going to lose his memories, and it comes back from episode to episode that it's something that he worries about. And he's trying to find himself again, and he's kind of self exploring and trying to connect with Tendi and it just I don't know. I just thought
yep.
that's a really cool subplot that I've never seen before. You know
And,
what?
and so I'll jump in with some likes here because that is one of the things that I like is that the show does carry character information and growth not only from episode to episode, um, but from previous season to current season. So, spoiler chat, spoiler, blah, blah, blah. In the previous season, something goes wrong with his cybernetic implant and he loses like all of his memories and he completely forgets about Tendi, who is his best friend. Um, and he eventually recovers some of those memories but starts building new ones, and that, like you said, it's a very important aspect of his character in this season, up to the point where it causes a problem for him. Again, in the final episode, so an awful lot of the things, the threads that it's weaving, it weaves together in its final episode. So you're right, it really does hold off all of the big guns for those last episodes.
Yeah. Oh, and sorry, one last
Yep.
thing. Easter eggs. There's a lot of great Easter eggs. If you love Star Trek, there's sometimes they reference something that I have to go back and look and remember again. So that's fun. Almost like each episode is almost like a true pursuit challenge where you're trying to figure out what they're referencing to.
Yep. And just I
Referring to.
realize I haven't brought up any of the images. So this is most of the core team. You got Rutherford with a cybernetic implant. You've got Mariner in the red, and you got Tendi in the blue. And that's the bartender back there who has. I tried to find out who's doing that voice. It's the best, one of the best Maine accents I've heard. So whoever does it knows a Maine accent. I'm from Maine, so I know. Sounded like an awful lot of my uncles. Let's put it that way. So other things I like about this is, well, like Manny said, the voice cast is absolutely fantastic. People who are not, so they hire an awful lot of the really good voice actors, Phil LaMarr, Nolan North, you know, people who are known for this sort of stuff. And they also have relatively newer actors, voice actors. Rutherford is portrayed by Eugene Cordero, who you may remember as the wonderful clerk in the very first episode of Loki.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
hilarious. But then I don't know any of the other. Well, no, it's not true. Boimler is Jack Quaid from The Boys.
Hmm.
So fantastic. But then they also have all sorts of, well, like you said, Easter eggs. So Tom Paris from Voyagers is in here, and he is portrayed by Robert Duncan McNeil from Voyager. Some of the others.
They have Jeffrey Combs come back. Jeffrey Combs, well known for Star Trek: Next Generation and Deep Space Nine as the evil computer in one episode.
Yep. John Delancey as Q in some of these are from the first season. It's amazing the people that they have. I tried to find out whether or not one of those Ferengi in that episode in this season was in fact one of the Ferengi from any of the appearances in any of the Star Trek. I couldn't tell. I couldn't find out who that character was. But yeah, so I really like that. The fact that they both mix it up with talented voice actors, talented live actors who clearly can do voice, and bringing back original characters when their animated character appears. It's wonderful. One of the other things I really like about it is, well, okay, I like some of the humor. I think sometimes the humor really hits. And when it really hits, it's when they're doing humor that's related to Star Trek in a respectful, not necessarily respectful, but not in a dismissive way. Like, as we mentioned, that whole episode with Kazon, Kayshawn, this is the very end. He tries to hit on this other, I guess with two pips, a lieutenant. And he does so, well, stupidly smoothly, but then can't think of what to say, so he shifts into metaphor at the end of the pickup line. And she just sort of gives him this side eye and walks away. And he just shrugs and says, "Shaka when the walls fell," and walks off. And it's like, oh, come on. That's hilarious. That's what a great way to reference that. And they, and some other times when they do things that are, like I said, exploring concepts. So they have the Cation, the feline humanoid doctor. And there's a couple of points where they sort of play with the idea of that character being more like a cat, like really loving boxes and really hating vet's visits and so on. And they do it. Those are two very funny subplots in a couple of episodes. It's really cool. And I'll get to one of the things I don't like about the humor and the dislikes, which is a problem, unfortunately, for this show. One of the other ones, just I almost fell over with this line in the episode with Kayshawn. They're in this collector's this collector who had died, and his ship that holds all of his stuff is there, and this guy needs to auction it off, but he needs a nearby Starfleet crew to come in and basically find out if there's anything really dangerous, because he has no idea what's in here. And so they're wandering around looking at all this stuff, and Tendi walks up to this helmet in a case and looks down and reads Kazon's Helmet of Fornication. And says, "Oh well, I mean, it's good that he used protection, I guess." And then walks along. And it's like, yes, that was a great line. There are great lines in this. And then we'll get into dislikes and talk about some of the other things. I thought the animation was okay. It's a little, you know, what the people who dismiss this sort of thing, and they're usually doing it by hating on something like Steven Universe, is what they call the bean mouth animation. And it is a little simplistic like that. But it's kind of like a simpler version of Rick and Morty style animation. The character designs are not terribly dissimilar. They're just a little bit more pleasant, a little bit, softer, less, hard edge, I guess.
Yeah, I want to add that I think I agree with you that the characters, okay, the design of that, but the background, like some of the settings of space they show, I'm like, wow, that's
Oh yeah,
that's amazing. I hope they like publish a book of
yeah,
what they designed. This is beautiful.
yeah. It is some really cool stuff. I mean, the design of the Cerritos, which is the ship that they're on, is really interesting. Um, so other things I like, I think the music's okay. It didn't stand out to me in any way, but it didn't get in the way, except their interpretation of Klingon acid punk. Um, I'd listen to
That's
that.
awesome. Yeah.
I'd listen to that. Um, and I guess that's mostly it. All right, so Manny, dislikes. And
Beckett needs to die.
I'm probably gonna rush you through because I know we have a hard limit coming up pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, Beckett, I can't not stand this character. Um, the first 5 episodes of the first season, I
Now
felt it was
that's sort of the main character, Mariner. Beckett Mariner is
yeah,
the character.
Beckett Mariner. Yeah, she is one of two characters they focus a lot in this show. The other one being Brad Boimler.
Yeah.
But I do it's why am I watching a show where she constantly craps on Star Trek? It's like what why is she here? Like I feel like this I I love Rick and Morty. I think they do a great job with not just how they develop the characters, but a lot of the subplots and main plots of the story. And I sometimes feel like this is trying to be a Rick and Morty clone, and it's just not working. You know,
Well, I mean, yeah, it comes from this guy, McMahon, who was a top writer on Rick and Morty. So
yeah, it's like it just and she comes across a lot of episodes very abusive, very controlling, and I have my fill of that with Rick and Morty, but at least they show that Rick is not a good guy. If you pick up, pay attention to the show. Um, so, but she gets away with a lot of things. Like it's like that one episode with the evil computer in the season 2, and she sabotaged Brad's chances of going on a mission that he wanted to go, and they never come back and address that. I've noticed at the end of the episode, they outwit the evil computer and they're back to being friends. And I'm like, wait a second, geez, what the heck? And I was hoping at the end of season 1 that they kind of fixed that, because I thought they finally shifted from her hating being in Starfleet and everything to like her not like working with her mother. And I'm like, okay, that's more. I could get with that, but then I'm just I don't know. It seems like she's just a rules breaker trope character, and it just takes me out of the show a lot of times. I get more invested with the other characters, and it's all about they get into like science and then there's like a lot of meta jokes and everything, and they make it fun. And when she's in it, I'm just like, oh. She's the type of person that in real life, if she existed, I would like move a state away to be away from.
um, all right, cool. Other dislikes, or yeah, I think we should move on. I kind of agree. She's not my favorite character by any stretch. I think that she has her ups and downs over the course of the season, but she ultimately, I think, lessens that annoyance factor as the season progresses. again, with some, it's generally trending downward with some spikes, like that episode with the computer. My big dislike about this whole series is the sort of Rick and Morty aspect of the humor when they take pot shots at Star Trek, not use Star Trek to make, pretty obvious, humor. And you know what? We're really pushing up on the edge of this. I'll just say I almost didn't watch the entire season after the first episode, which I watched this past weekend, because this first episode is awful. The first episode of this season is just the worst humor.
Yeah, that was horrible. I was like, what? Like they ended season one in such a good note, and I was excited. I was like, oh, okay, I can't wait to see what they've learned and what they're gonna do. And it was horrible. I was like, what is this crap?
Yeah, it's really bad. One of the examples of the nature of the way they use the humor badly is they make fun of the fact that they identify unknown energies as strange energy. Like they actually give it a name now, even though, what it does is completely ludicrous. In this episode, they reference Gary Mitchell, the character from one of the very first episode of Star Trek, the original series, who winds up getting hit by some sort of unknown energy and becomes like a god. This happens to Ransom, but they play it like this strange energy is something that, they've studied and they understand. It's still strange energy. They don't know what it does, but, and it's such a slap in the face of any science fiction fan who is saying, okay, I'm going to suspend my disbelief to say that, yes, here's some sort of unknown thing that caused this occurrence, and let's get along with the plot about what this means. To play it like that is literally telling every Star Trek fan who liked that first episode, it's like, haha, we're going to make fun of you for just accepting the fact that this was, an unknown energy. And I'm like, that's a really crappy way to deal with your fans. And that's so much a part of the humor of that first episode. I was like, honestly, I messaged Manny and say, hey, are we really doing this show? Because, I'm going to throw in Violet Evergarden, the movie, if we're not. And he said, no, I'll be on. Let's talk about it. It's like, okay, I'll finish watching it. And honestly, I'm glad I did. It actually does redeem itself somewhat. But it's got some really big flaws. And those big flaws are when the writers try to do too Rick and Morty-esque or the Orville when it's really bad-esque humor. That honestly, that makes it something that I'm not sure that I'm going to come back for season 3. So in 2 minutes, Manny, recommendation or recommendation to come back for season 3, and where would you put it on a scale of 1 to 10?
I wouldn't watch season 3, but I would say season 1, first 8 episodes, D. Season 2, first 8 episodes, F. But the last 2 episodes, if you really want to see the best of it, watch the last 2 episodes of season 1, watch the last 2 episodes of season 2. That 9th episode where they look at different lower decks and look at the perspective of Vulcans and Klingons, I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was amazing. I'm like, where is this brilliance in the rest of these episodes?
Yep. Yeah. The end of the final episode where we've known all along, if you're a fan of Star Trek, that there is an inner and an outer hull on the ships. And they say, hey, you can remove the outer hull. It removes an awful lot of defensive plating, but, it doesn't remove the ability for the ship to contain atmosphere. And that becomes a very important plot element. It's like, wow, that's pretty freaking smart. Anyway. All right, folks, I would agree with Manny. I don't think I would recommend this necessarily to anybody.
Watch Star Trek Prodigy. The first 3 episodes of that is way better than the entire 2 seasons of Star Trek Lower Decks.
I agree 100%. All right, we got to cut it off, folks. Real quickly, if you get a chance, go to patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Check it out. We've got 3 tiers, $2 for the first tier. We'd really love to have you help us get to cons and get more content. Monday's No Nerd Caliber is top 3 vampires, because next Thursday's Full Fat Spoiler Chat is What We Do in the Shadows